Thanks for stopping by Scott's PC. Let's have a look at this very young portfolio, an income portfolio that I started on July 1st. Let's have a look. And we'll start by looking at the pie chart. Today is September 19, 2025. It is a Friday. I do have a small margin count on Robinhood, $8,400 of cash. I'm not using any margin right now, so to speak. The account is up 4.51%, and I'm using 5 weekly dividend pairs, ULTY and XBTY being my biggest positions. And then I have a little bit of ULTY, NDII, and this little sliver right here is Maggie. I got a couple growth funds to help support this portfolio. Let's take a quick peek of how I've started these first 3 months. You can see in July I made just under $100, in August $334. This was all just from those high yield dividends. And then for September, I'm guesstimating about $585. This is going to include the high yield dividends plus some options income, which I've been teaching myself to do just these past 8 or 9 days. But first, let me show you how I'm getting this $585 for September. And we'll start off with these high yield ETFs. I have 5 weekly pairs, one for each day of the week. And let's start with ULTY, my biggest position. You can see it's sitting at 567 right now. I currently have 561 shares, and I'm thinking if they just paid out an average of 8.5 cents per share for the whole month, I'd get $202. Now, we know that they paid over 9 cents, I believe, for the first 3 weeks, so this will be a little bit higher. XBTY, my second biggest position, 113 shares. They have 5 paydays because I pay on a Tuesday. I'm thinking 41 cents a share or $2.05 for the month. If they do this, that's $231. NBII, just 11 shares, 126 for the month. They do that, almost $15 for September. Yet I'm thinking $1.50 for the whole month. I have a small position, just under 11 shares. And then my very small position is Maggie, only 4 shares, paying about $1.85 for the entire month. If you do that, it's $473. I did not have this number of shares at the beginning of September, so I'd really guesstimating about $450 to $460 just for the high yield dividends. But now I'm happy to incorporate some options income to help out those dividends for overall monthly and weekly income. You can see the past month, which is basically the past week, $129. And then you can see my latest options. I will click right here, and now you can see this is for the first week. You can see the 12th was actually my first credit, so to speak, of $7. And then these I did throughout this week that just ended. You can see I did have a few losses. I just wasn't sure. But Tesla, NSOX, and Tesla again, those were my big options play, relatively speaking, for this week, which in turn gave me $129, which I'm guesstimating will give me $585 for the month of September, give or take a few bucks. And now let's take a peek at what my high yielders did for the 3rd week of September. You can see my 5 weekly pairs here, Monday through Friday. You can see the respective share counts, the respective distributions per share, ULTY and XBTY being my heavy hitters at about $50 each. You add them all up, I made $105 in dividends, along with the $129 I've made so far in the month of September. You know, I pulled in about $234 this week, so not bad. And now for the review. Friday, September 19, 2025. Today, up 2% or $175. This past week, up $300 or 3.68%. For the past month, it's been a good month for this small portfolio, up 6.11% or $487. And 3 months is lifetime of this portfolio, up 4.52% or about $365. This is my buying power, so to speak. Right now, I have one option open that requires $500 of collateral. You can see I have $123 of cash. I put in $35 today, and 82 of these dollars is the premium from the option I just opened. And with this $123 that I do have available, I'll probably put 20% into those growth funds that I've been telling you about for the past couple weeks, VU and QQQ, along with Bitcoin. And right here, you can see my margin status. I'm at 61%. I don't know if this is right. The buying power is $7,800, but my portfolio is $4,800 above my margin maintenance. So I think this $4,800 is my buying power. So I don't know. Maybe someone can let me know in the comments. Okay, let's start out with the options play I put in today. NSOX, I did a $5 put a premium of 82 cents or an $82 premium, which you saw in my buying power. I did my very first option on MSOX with a strike price of $7. This was when it was at about $9. And of course, when I bought it the very next day, it goes down to $6.20. I figured I would have been assigned those positions, but yesterday, Thursday, September 18th, it shot up past my strike price. I went ahead and closed out my very first options position ever and made $30. All right, let's jump to the high yielders. ULTY, my biggest position by far. 38% of the portfolio. I now have about 561 shares. You can see an average cost of $619, pretty close to $3,200 in market value. Today, up a nice chunk, 27 bucks, but a total return of negative $290, or I'm down 8.34%. However, if you look at the screenshot on the right, I have about 12 weeks of data since I owned ULTY, and so far it's paid me $475. And this top right up here is my batting average per share of almost just under 10 cents. So I'm down $290 here, but it's paid me $475. I'm up minus taxes. Week by week, folks, we're just going to keep on moving on. Week 13, here we come. And the next up is XBTY. You can see 28% of the portfolio, 113 shares, average cost of $22.72, $2,400 in market value. The total return, I'm down 6.25%, or $160. But if you look at the screenshot on the right, you can see I've held XBTY for about 8 weeks, and eventually on the 23rd of this month, it's going to pay me $45. So $224 of dividends versus being down on 160 bucks. So I'm up a little bit. Again, I'm waiting for Bitcoin to really pump to make this position go up. Next up, NBII, the 11 shares, about $360 of value, an average cost of $30.16. You can see this has been spitting out some dividends for me with a total return of up $7, or about 2%. That is very nice. I keep telling you guys I need to up this position. Eventually I will. Okay, next up is YETH, or YETH, however you want to pronounce it. 10 shares, $29.87 is the cost. It's about 3% of the portfolio, so very small position. I'm down about 4%, or close to $13. And then I have Maggie, my very smallest position, just 3% of the portfolio, $250 in market value. There's my average cost of $56.88, and it's another position that has a total return in the green a little bit. And then to go with these high yield ETFs, because there is NAV erosion or some NAV decline, especially during a down market, which I'm fully aware of, I decided to put some growth funds into this portfolio. For first, I have VOO, better known as VOO. I have a little bit over 1.12 shares. It's about 8% of the portfolio. You can see I'm up about 3.27%, or about $21. My goal with these growth funds is for them to be about 20% of the total portfolio. The next growth fund is QQQ, a little bit over 1 share, about 600 bucks in market value. You can see I'm up almost 5% in this position, or about $29. Again, a very young portfolio. Over time, 6 months, a year plus, that the S&P and the NASDAQ, they're probably going to go up. So these positions will help support the overall portfolio. And then maybe a not so traditional growth fund is Bitcoin. I have about 5% of the portfolio in Bitcoin, or about $400. You can see my average cost is about $111,000. Right now, I'm up about 4%, or $16. Bitcoin's come down in the past 24 hours or so. And then another non-traditional growth fund, XRP, about $200 in value, 66, almost 63 coins. There's the average cost of $286. In this position, I'm up about 4.5%, or about $8.69. Anyway, I went a little bit options crazy this week, just learning the ropes. I don't anticipate making $129 of options income every week. If I can do that just for the month, I'd be very grateful for that. I could have easily lost $129 this week, just like that. But luckily, I've been paying very close attention this whole week. So I just have that one play on MSOX. I got the $82 premium. It expires in 30 days, and we'll see how it goes if I roll it. At least that will be an $82 income for October, or I'll get assigned those shares and I'll sell some covered calls on that stock. Folks, I want to thank you for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next video.